The court hall stretched endlessly, a vast space of shining metal and hovering lights, its walls filled with alien symbols that flickered and shimmered like living stars. Representatives from dozens of different worlds moved gracefully through the hall, their shapes and forms unlike anything Mara had ever seen. Some floated in midair, some walked on many legs, while others seemed to ripple like liquid. The entire assembly buzzed with a low hum of conversation, each delegate speaking in their own alien language. Translators shimmered around their heads, converting every word into a sound Mara could understand. But still, the sheer variety of voices made her feel dizzy. Mara Vance, a young human envoy, stood near the edge of the main platform. She had trained for this moment for years, yet standing here, she felt smaller than she ever had in her life. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and most species thought of them as weak, fragile creatures. Mara knew that her species had strengths others did not see. But right now she worried that no one would notice. She glanced at her guard, Sergeant Eli Carter, who gave her a reassuring nod. Eli had been with her since she arrived on the interstellar ship, and his calm presence always reminded her that she was not alone. The session began with a burst of light and sound as the presiding judge floated into view. The judge was enormous, with 6 arms and skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Its voice echoed through the hall, formal and commanding. Delegates of the United Galactic Assembly, we convene to discuss the future of the newly discovered planet Ceres 9. Each representative may speak, and all claims will be examined with the utmost care. Mara listened carefully, trying to absorb the strange customs and gestures of the other delegates. Some offered glowing gifts as signs of respect. Others emitted musical tones instead of speech. The human's presence was unusual, and she noticed several delegates glancing at her, curiosity in their many eyes. She straightened her posture, reminding herself that humans were capable, clever, and adaptive. They might be small in number, but they had survived challenges that none of these alien species could even imagine. Then it happened. Mara felt a sudden pressure in her chest, as if the very air had grown thick and heavy. Her vision blurred for a moment, and she swayed slightly. Eli was immediately at her side, steadying her with a firm hand. The murmurs started at the edges of the hall. Humans were not known for such reactions. Delegates whispered to each other, their translated words brushing against Mara's ears. Fragile species. So weak. Can they endure this environment? Mara's knees bent involuntarily, and before she could steady herself, she collapsed onto the platform. Gasps filled the hall. The silver-skinned judge floated closer, its many eyes widening in surprise. Several delegates leaned forward, their alien appendages extended as if to help, though Mara could sense their hesitation. She felt a flush of embarrassment, her human body trembling not from fear, but from something she could not yet understand. Eli crouched beside her immediately, whispering, "Mara, stay calm. I've got you." His voice was steady, carrying a confidence that Mara clung to. He checked her vitals with a small device, scanning her heartbeat and breathing. Everything appeared normal, but the readings showed tiny fluctuations no human should have been experiencing. Eli frowned, his mind already racing through possibilities. He knew humans were stronger than most species thought, but something here was interacting with Mara in a way that no one could see. Delegates stepped back as Mara slowly pushed herself upright, leaning on Eli. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone with determination. "I'm fine," she said, her voice shaking slightly but growing steadier with each word. "Just give me a moment." The judge observed her silently, its many arms folding in a gesture Mara could not fully interpret. She realized that this was not just about her body, it was about perception. If the court believed humans were weak, it could affect their decisions about her species. Taking a deep breath, Mara focused on what she could control: her mind, her senses, her presence. She noticed subtle changes in the air, tiny shifts in the energy fields around the hall. They were faint, almost invisible, but her human nervous system picked them up before any alien senses could. She felt the slight vibration in the floor, the way the light shimmered differently when the delegates moved, the almost imperceptible hum of the floating platforms. Humans might be underestimated, but that did not make them powerless. Eli helped her stand fully, and she straightened her back with renewed resolve. The whispers in the hall had not stopped, but now they sounded different. Mara could see the curiosity growing in the delegates' eyes. What was it about humans that allowed them to notice things no one else could? Perhaps fragility was only one side of the coin. Perhaps humans had senses, intuition, and adaptability that the court had never considered. As the session continued, Mara held her ground, observing, learning, and preparing. The collapse that had shocked the court was only the beginning. Somewhere deep inside she knew the truth would come out, and when it did, the universe would see humans in a way it never had before. After the collapse, the court hall slowly returned to its rhythm. Delegates resumed their positions, their attention shifting to the ongoing discussion about Ceres 9. But Mara could feel eyes still lingering on her. Every glance reminded her of the fragility the aliens assumed humans had, and it made her determined to prove them wrong. She straightened her back, keeping her movements slow and deliberate so that no one could mistake hesitation for weakness. Eli remained close, his eyes scanning the hall with a watchful intensity, while everyone else assumed Mara had fainted from stress or human weakness. He knew something more was happening. His portable sensor quietly hovered beside her, capturing subtle energy fluctuations that Mara could barely feel but that were clearly affecting her nervous system. The readings were small, almost invisible, but they were consistent. Some form of interference in the court environment was interacting with human physiology, though no alien species seemed affected. "Lieutenant, stay calm," Eli whispered, keeping his voice low so that only she could hear. "I'm tracking this. There's something off about the energy fields in this hall. You're not weak. You're sensing what they can't." Mara nodded slightly, trusting him completely. His presence gave her courage. The aliens may not understand humans, but Eli understood how to protect them. The presiding judge spoke again, its voice echoing in the chamber. "Let us hear the claims regarding Ceres 9. Present your evidence." Delegates rose one by one, sharing charts, holograms, and glowing data crystals that displayed planetary maps and chemical analyses. Mara watched carefully, noticing patterns in the energy flows that flickered around each presentation. She could feel the field fluctuations through her body, tiny pulses that seemed to respond to the alien technology itself. Others ignored them entirely, unaware that the subtle variations carried important information. Eli moved closer, whispering again, "Watch how it changes when they manipulate the displays. That's what triggered your collapse." Mara focused harder, following his guidance. She realized that the energy fields were not natural. They were being adjusted intentionally, but not by the aliens in leadership positions. Some lower-ranking delegates had learned how to influence the court's environment, hoping to manipulate human perception. The thought made her pulse quicken. Humans were underestimated, but that did not mean they would be ignored. As the session continued, Mara began to test herself. She allowed herself to stand directly near the areas where the energy spikes were strongest. Her body tensed, then relaxed as she concentrated on sensing the exact moments of interference. Each pulse she detected, each fluctuation she noted became a piece of a larger puzzle. She realized that humans were uniquely sensitive in ways the aliens could not even imagine. Other species relied on technology and instinct, but humans could sense subtle energy changes through pure observation and intuition. Eli observed from the side, recording the readings from his sensors. "This is incredible," he muttered quietly. "You're picking up shifts that no alien can even notice. Humans are designed to adapt. That's what they never expected." Mara felt a surge of pride. She had been trained for diplomacy, strategy, and observation, but this situation went beyond training. It was proving that human perception was an advantage, a hidden strength waiting to be recognized. Suddenly, one of the lower-ranking delegates, a small, insect-like being with translucent wings, made a subtle adjustment to the energy field. Mara immediately felt the shift, her knees trembling slightly for an instant. Eli caught the spike on his sensors and whispered urgently, "They're trying again. Stay steady. Don't let them see you falter." Mara nodded, breathing slowly to steady herself. With each pulse, she began to anticipate the interference, predicting the next fluctuation before it happened. The court might have thought humans were fragile, but here, their sensitivity became a secret weapon. As the hours passed, Mara kept her focus sharp. She took mental notes of each delegate's movement, each energy adjustment, and each subtle signal the sensors recorded. Eli stayed at her side, offering quiet encouragement. Together, they were beginning to map the hidden patterns behind the court's technology. The human ability to Notice and adapt to small changes was becoming evident, even if the aliens remained oblivious. By the time the session ended for the day, Mara felt exhausted but empowered. She had survived multiple triggers of the hidden energy fields without collapsing, and she had learned how to detect manipulations before they could affect her. Eli gave her a rare smile, pride shining in his eyes. "You did it," he said quietly. "You proved them wrong. Humans aren't fragile. We notice what no one else can." Mara nodded, a small smile forming despite her fatigue. She knew the next session would be even more challenging. The court would continue its discussions, the aliens would continue their subtle manipulations, and she would need to stay alert. But now she understood something important. Humans were not weak. They were observant, resilient, and adaptable. Every challenge here was an opportunity to show that strength, and she would not let the court underestimate them again. As she prepared to leave the platform, Mara glanced at Eli. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we show them exactly what humans can do." Eli nodded. "And they won't see it coming." Together, they left the hall, the hum of alien voices following them, unaware that the most unexpected advantage in the galaxy had just begun to reveal itself. The next morning, Mara arrived at the court earlier than usual. The hall was quieter now, the delegates preparing their devices and floating platforms for another day of presentations. The hum of alien conversations filled the air, but Mara felt more confident this time. She had learned to recognize the hidden energy shifts that had caused her collapse the previous day. She could feel them before they arrived, like tiny ripples moving across the floor, invisible to everyone else. Eli followed her closely, carrying his portable sensors. He had spent the night reviewing the data he collected the day before. The readings were unusual but consistent. The interference was not random. Someone or something was deliberately altering the energy fields in the court, and humans were the only species affected. "They're trying to manipulate us," Eli whispered as they stepped onto the platform. "But we'll see it coming this time," Mara nodded. The thought of deliberate interference did not scare her. It motivated her. Humans were often underestimated, but now she had proof that her species could detect what others could not. As the session began, Mara observed carefully. Delegates rose in order, presenting evidence, claims, and holographic maps of Ceres 9. Her eyes were drawn not to the displays themselves, but to the subtle energy waves surrounding them. Mara could feel tiny vibrations in the floor, small shifts in the floating platforms, and faint pulses in the air. She realized that the same spikes which had caused her collapse yesterday were being repeated, only slightly stronger today. Eli crouched beside her, quietly monitoring the sensors. "See that?" he whispered. "They're trying the same trick. Someone wants the humans to appear weak." Mara nodded, her jaw tightening. She focused on the energy pulses, learning to sense them with precision. She could predict when a spike would occur, allowing her to remain stable and alert. With every fluctuation, Mara felt her confidence grow. Humans were not fragile. They were adaptable, capable of noticing details no one else could. After the first few presentations, Mara noticed something else. Certain delegates had subtle patterns in their movements, tiny gestures that caused the energy fields to shift. The patterns were almost invisible, but humans had an advantage. They could detect subtle inconsistencies in the environment, and Mara was beginning to map them in her mind. Each gesture, each adjustment became part of a larger picture. Someone was orchestrating the interference, but Mara and Eli were beginning to see the puzzle take shape. During a short break, Mara and Eli stepped aside. Eli showed her the readings from the sensors, pointing to the repeated spikes in the energy fields. "Look at this," he said. "Every spike happens when a certain delegate moves a device. It's deliberate. They think humans will collapse again." Mara frowned. "They underestimated us," she said. "They didn't expect humans to notice patterns this small. That's their mistake." Returning to the platform, Mara tested her new skill. She stood near the area where the largest spikes occurred, sensing the pulses and predicting the shifts. Each time she remained steady, unshaken, showing no sign of weakness. The other delegates watched, puzzled. How could a human stand calmly while these strange waves pulsed through the room? Some whispered, curiosity growing. Humans might be fragile, but perhaps they were also capable of something no one had understood. Eli's sensors continued to record every detail. He noticed that the spikes were slightly different from yesterday, smarter, more coordinated. Someone had studied humans and adjusted their tactics. Yet every time the interference occurred, Mara sensed it in advance, countering it naturally through focus and observation. Her ability to detect small changes became a unique advantage. While other species relied on technology or sheer size, humans had perception, intuition, and quick adaptation. Toward the end of the session, Mara decided to act. A delegate attempted another spike, this one stronger than before. Mara did not falter. Instead, she raised her hand to signal the presiding judge, pointing out the irregularities in the energy field. Eli projected the sensor readings discreetly, showing the judge the precise timing of the spikes. The court fell silent. Delegates murmured, realizing that someone had been manipulating the environment. For the first time, humans were not just participants, they were revealing the truth. The judge, its many eyes wide with interest, floated closer. "This is unusual," it said. "No species has previously detected or resisted such interference. Humans, your perception is remarkable." Mara felt a thrill of pride. She had not only survived the energy spikes, but had also turned the situation into an advantage. Humans were being noticed for their unique strengths: observation, intuition, and adaptability. After the session ended, Mara and Eli stepped away from the main platform. "We've got their attention," Eli said quietly, a smile on his face. "They underestimated humans, but now they know you can see what no one else can." Mara nodded. She understood that the challenge was far from over. The court would continue its sessions, and some delegates would likely try new tricks. But humans had a secret weapon: the ability to notice, adapt, and respond in ways others could not even imagine. As they walked toward the exit, Mara felt a new confidence growing inside her. The collapse that had shocked the court yesterday was now a memory, a lesson learned. Humans were not fragile. They were perceptive, resilient, and capable of facing challenges in ways no one had expected. And with Eli by her side, Mara knew they were ready for whatever the court would throw at them next. The court hall was quieter than usual when Mara and Eli returned the next day. Delegates had spread out, preparing their displays and devices for another session on Ceres 9. The morning light reflected off the metallic walls, making the whole space shimmer as if alive. Mara felt a steady calm as she walked beside Eli. She had survived the interference before, and now she understood the patterns. She had the ability to sense the hidden shifts, and that gave her an edge the aliens could not imagine. Eli led her to a small corner near the platform, where he had set up his portable sensors. He spoke quietly so only Mara could hear. "I've been reviewing the readings from yesterday and last night. The spikes weren't random, they're deliberate. Someone is trying to make humans appear weak." Mara nodded. "They think we're fragile. They don't understand that humans can adapt." Eli smiled, proud of her. "And we're going to show them." As the session began, Mara carefully watched the delegates. Some floated, some hovered, and others stood still, presenting holographic data of the planet. With each movement, Mara noticed tiny fluctuations in the energy fields, pulses, ripples, and slight vibrations that the aliens seemed completely unaware of. She felt them through her body and realized they were being manipulated. It was clever, subtle, and meant to confuse humans, but Mara was ready. Eli whispered, "Watch the smaller delegates. They're the ones causing the biggest shifts." Mara concentrated, observing their gestures. One insect-like delegate with translucent wings moved a small device along the floor. Mara immediately felt the energy pulse and could predict the pattern. She stood her ground, her body steady, sensing the timing before the spike could affect her. Humans were not fragile. Their perception and quick response turned a danger into an advantage. Throughout the morning, Mara and Eli worked quietly together. She noted every small shift, every change in the air, and every ripple of the energy fields. Eli monitored the readings, recording them discreetly. "They're learning from their mistakes," he whispered. They adjusted the field pulses. "But you can still sense it." Mara nodded. She felt a surge of pride. Humans could perceive what others could not, and now they had proof. Suddenly, one of the lower-ranking delegates tried a stronger interference. Mara felt the familiar pressure in her chest, but this time she did not falter. She predicted the spike, shifted her stance, and remained steady. Eli caught the spike on the sensors and showed the readings to Mara. "See? You predicted it perfectly. That's your advantage." Mara realized that the court had underestimated the most important human trait. observation. Other species relied on technology or brute force, but humans could sense, understand, and respond to tiny details that made all the difference. After a few more attempts by the delegates, Mara decided it was time to act. She stood tall on the platform and addressed the court, pointing out the unusual energy patterns. "These fields are being manipulated," she said clearly. "They are designed to affect humans, but the interference is detectable. With careful observation, it is possible to anticipate and counter the spikes." The hall went silent. Many delegates looked shocked, unable to imagine that a human could perceive what their devices were doing. Eli discreetly projected his sensor readings to the judge, showing the timing of the interference and the exact moments when Mara detected it. The presiding judge, with its many arms folded, studied the data closely. Its eyes widened. "This is remarkable," it said. "No species has previously noticed or resisted such manipulation. Humans, your perception is extraordinary." Mara felt a small smile spread across her face. For the first time, she felt truly recognized. Humans were not weak. They were clever, sensitive, and uniquely capable. The other delegates began to murmur among themselves. Some looked impressed, others puzzled. Mara could feel the shift in their attention. They had assumed humans were fragile and easy to manipulate, but now they were seeing something different. Humans were not just survivors, they were observers, analyzers, and adapters, capable of reading the environment in ways no one else could. After the session ended, Mara and Eli stepped aside, away from the crowd. "We did it," Eli said softly. "They can't ignore humans anymore." Mara nodded. She felt proud, but she knew the work was not over. The court would continue, and some delegates might try new tricks. But humans had revealed their hidden strength. Observation, intuition, and adaptability were powerful tools that no one had expected. As they walked through the hall, Mara glanced at Eli. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "we take this further. We show them humans are more than they think." Eli smiled. "And they won't be able to keep it a secret." Mara knew he was right. The collapse that had shocked the court days ago had transformed into a lesson in perception and strength. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were starting to be respected. For the first time in the assembly, Mara felt that humans were being seen for who they truly were. They were not fragile. They were resilient, clever, and capable of noticing the invisible threads that others overlooked. And with Eli at her side, she knew they could face whatever challenges the court placed before them next, ready to reveal the true power of human perception. The next session of the court began with a quiet tension. Delegates moved into their positions, holographic displays shimmering above the platforms, each filled with charts, maps, and glowing data. Mara stepped onto the main platform with Eli beside her, her posture calm but confident. The court had begun to notice humans. Whispers circulated, some curious, some skeptical. Mara could feel the subtle shifts of energy in the room before they occurred, and for the first time, she realized humans had an advantage others could not touch. Eli glanced at her and nodded. "It's time to show them what we can do." Mara inhaled deeply, focusing on the vibrations, the slight ripples in the floating platforms, and the almost invisible pulses in the energy fields. She noticed patterns no alien seemed to see. Certain gestures from delegates caused energy fluctuations, some deliberate, some accidental. Humans could detect all of it. This was the moment to demonstrate that fragility was not their weakness. It was their hidden strength. As the first delegate began speaking, Mara followed the energy pulses closely. The insect-like being that had caused the strongest interference in previous sessions moved a small device across the floor. Mara sensed the pulse before it could fully rise and shifted her stance just enough to remain steady. Eli's sensors confirmed it. "Perfect," he whispered. "You predicted it before it even started." The court murmured, noticing that Mara was unaffected while others had shown signs of stress. Some delegates began to glance at each other, their curiosity growing. When the second delegate moved, Mara pointed to a subtle fluctuation in the energy field, explaining to the judge and the court how it was caused by deliberate manipulation. Eli discreetly projected the sensor readings alongside her observations. The court became silent. The presiding judge, a towering figure with shimmering arms, studied the readings carefully. "Incredible," it said. No species has previously detected such subtle interference. Humans, your perception is unmatched. Mara felt a thrill of pride. For the first time, humans were not just participants. They were now recognized as uniquely capable observers. Encouraged by the reaction, Mara took a more active role. She began predicting the energy spikes before the delegates even moved their devices. Each time she predicted and countered a fluctuation, she explained it calmly to the court, showing the method behind her perception. Delegates whispered to each other, some impressed, some puzzled, but all watching closely. Humans were no longer the fragile species they had assumed. They were attentive, adaptable, and capable of understanding patterns that others could not. Eli monitored every reading from his sensors, projecting it subtly so Mara could see it in real time. "You're doing more than detecting," he whispered. "You're teaching them without them realizing it." Mara smiled slightly. That was exactly what she wanted. Observation was powerful, but teaching the court about human perception was even more important. With every prediction she made, the court began to understand that humans were not only resilient, they were exceptional in ways no one had expected. By mid-session, Mara had mapped the patterns of energy interference from multiple delegates. She noticed how one group was attempting coordinated spikes to confuse humans, yet her observations allowed her to anticipate each one. With careful timing, she neutralized the effect, pointing out exactly when and how the energy shifts were manipulated. The murmurs in the court grew louder. Aliens who had dismissed humans now stared, unable to ignore the subtle brilliance of their perception. Toward the end of the session, Mara made a bold move. She stood near the center of the platform, where the most powerful energy fluctuations occurred, and spoke clearly. "These energy fields are designed to influence perception," she said. "Humans are not immune, but we can detect and adapt to them in ways others cannot. Observation, attention, and intuition are not weaknesses. They are strengths." The judge leaned forward, its many arms moving slowly as it considered her words. "Remarkable," it said. "Humans have demonstrated a form of intelligence and adaptability previously unrecognized in the assembly." Delegates who had previously dismissed humans now looked at Mara with newfound respect. They whispered among themselves, analyzing her methods, and some even mimicked her stance to understand how she could detect the subtle shifts. Mara had turned what had been seen as a weakness into an undeniable strength. Humans were observant, resilient, and capable of detecting patterns that no other species could. As the session ended, Mara and Eli stepped off the platform. Eli smiled at her. "You did it," he said. "You didn't just survive, you proved humans are extraordinary." Mara nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. She understood that the court's perception of humans had shifted forever. They were no longer underestimated or dismissed. Their sensitivity and adaptability had turned into a clear advantage, one that could not be ignored. Walking away, Mara felt a surge of confidence. The court had begun to see humans in a new light. The collapse that had shocked the assembly days ago was now a distant memory, replaced by recognition of a hidden human strength. And with Eli at her side, Mara knew they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, prepared to continue demonstrating that humans were far more than anyone had ever imagined. The next morning, the court felt different. Delegates moved into their positions, but their whispers carried curiosity and caution. Mara could sense it before she even stepped onto the platform. Humans were no longer underestimated. Their subtle observation and sharp perception had drawn attention. Eli walked beside her, carrying his sensors and a small device he had been working on overnight. It was designed to detect even the tiniest manipulations in the energy fields, something humans had discovered, but the aliens had never anticipated. As the session began, Mara focused on the faint vibrations in the floor, the tiny ripples in the floating platforms, and the delicate hums in the air. She had already learned how to anticipate the energy shifts that previously caused her collapse. Now she wanted to understand their source. Eli's device quietly scanned the room, highlighting small areas where the fields were being adjusted. Mara could feel it too, the subtle changes that revealed someone was intentionally manipulating the environment. The first delegate presented a holographic map of Ceres 9. Mara noticed the energy fields pulse at irregular intervals, more intense than usual. Eli's device beeped softly, indicating the source of the fluctuation. Mara leaned slightly, feeling the shift in her nervous system, and nodded to Eli. "It's coming from that corner," she whispered. Eli's eyes widened. "So someone is doing it intentionally," he said. "We need to find out who." Mara carefully observed the movements of the delegates. One, a small insect-like being with translucent wings, seemed to move deliberately near the energy nodes on the platform. Mara recognized the pattern. It was the same delegate who had caused interference in previous sessions. She also noticed a few others subtly assisting, adjusting their devices in coordination. Humans were sensitive to patterns like these, and Mara could now map them in real time. Eli projected the readings onto a small display that only he and Mara could see. "There," he whispered, pointing to the highlighted delegates. "They're coordinating this. Someone wants to make humans appear weak." Mara's jaw tightened. It wasn't just an accident or a test. It was deliberate. But humans had an advantage: perception and ingenuity. If they could detect it, they could also neutralize it. Mara turned her attention to the center of the platform. The energy fields pulsed again, slightly stronger this time. She took a deep breath and focused, allowing her perception to guide her movements. With careful adjustments of her stance and gestures, she created subtle counter-resonances in the fields, reducing their intensity. Eli's sensors confirmed it. The interference had weakened. Delegates noticed the change and paused, confused. Mara remained calm, showing no sign of strain, as if nothing had happened. Seeing an opportunity, Mara spoke to the court. "These energy fields are being adjusted deliberately," she said. "Humans are affected, but we can detect and counter the interference. Observation, attention, and adaptation allow us to respond in ways no other species can." The judge floated closer, its eyes wide. "Fascinating," it said. "You have not only detected the interference, but you have also neutralized it using human ingenuity." "This is extraordinary," the court murmured among themselves. Delegates who had tried to manipulate the fields looked embarrassed, their attempts now exposed. Mara and Eli quietly projected the evidence, showing exactly how the interference was coordinated and how humans had countered it. The murmurs grew louder, shifting from confusion to respect. Humans were no longer fragile or easily fooled. They were clever, perceptive, and adaptable in ways the assembly had never imagined. Throughout the rest of the session, Mara continued to demonstrate her ability to detect subtle changes, predict interference, and respond with precision. Every time a delegate attempted a manipulation, she anticipated it and neutralized its effect. Eli monitored everything, recording the patterns and confirming the accuracy of her observations. By the end of the day, the court had a new understanding of human capabilities. Observation, intuition, and adaptability were now recognized as unique strengths, not weaknesses. As the session concluded, Mara stepped off the platform with Eli. "We've done more than survive," Eli said quietly. "We've shown them that humans are extraordinary." Mara nodded. "We've proven it," she said. "And soon everyone in this court will know it." For the first time, she felt the weight of respect from the assembly. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were seen, not just as participants, but as a species capable of understanding and adapting to challenges that others could not even perceive. Walking through the hall, Mara felt a quiet confidence. The collapse that had shocked the court days ago was now a distant memory. In its place was recognition of human ingenuity and perception, abilities that no one had anticipated. With Eli, by her side, she knew they were ready for whatever came next. Humans were not fragile. They were clever, adaptable, and perceptive. A species capable of seeing and responding to the invisible threads that shaped the universe around them. The court hall was brighter than ever that day, sunlight reflecting off the metal walls and dancing across the floating platforms. Delegates were gathered for the final session, and Mara could feel a quiet tension in the air. After the past sessions, humans were no longer overlooked. Their subtle perception and quick thinking had been noticed, and the whispers among the aliens carried a mix of curiosity and respect. Mara stepped onto the platform with Eli beside her, calm and confident. Today she knew humans would be recognized for what they truly were. Eli checked his sensors one last time. "All clear," he whispered. No unexpected interference this time. The court is ready. Mara nodded. She focused on the energy fields in the room, observing the faint ripples and pulses as if reading a language only humans could understand. Delegates began their presentations, and Mara noticed the subtle gestures, the movements of devices, and the faint manipulations that had previously caused her trouble. But this time she was prepared. Humans had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. As the first delegate presented, Mara followed the patterns carefully. She could feel where the energy fields were being adjusted and anticipated every change. Eli's sensors confirmed her readings. Perfect, he said softly. You see everything before it happens. Mara allowed herself a small smile. The human's advantage was clear: observation, attention, and intuition. Other species relied on tools and brute calculations, but humans could sense and understand patterns in ways no one else could. When the next delegate attempted subtle interference, Mara stayed calm. She countered it naturally, using her body and perception to maintain stability. Eli projected the sensor readings discreetly to the judge, showing exactly how humans had detected and neutralized the interference. The judge's multiple eyes widened in appreciation. Humans, it said, your abilities are remarkable. You have demonstrated perception, adaptability, and ingenuity beyond what has ever been recorded in this assembly. Mara felt a surge of pride. The court's recognition was more than words, it was respect. Delegates who had doubted humans now watched closely, some even attempting to mimic Mara's stance to understand how she could detect the hidden patterns. Humans were no longer fragile observers. They were capable participants with a unique skill set that the assembly could not ignore. As the final discussions about Ceres 9 began, Mara used her perception to anticipate subtle moves from delegates trying to sway the decision unfairly. She pointed out inconsistencies in their evidence, explained how energy fields had been manipulated, and demonstrated how humans could detect and understand these subtleties. Eli assisted by showing sensor data, confirming every observation. Slowly, the court began to realize that humans were not just participants, they were guides in understanding and uncovering hidden truths. The debate continued, but the energy in the hall had shifted. Where there had been doubt and skepticism, there was now cautious admiration. Delegates spoke more carefully, aware that humans could notice even the smallest irregularity. Mara realized that their species' unique abilities had become a form of diplomacy. Observation and clarity of thought had earned them a voice, and the other delegates had no choice but to listen. Finally, the presiding judge floated to the center, its many arms crossing respectfully. After reviewing all evidence and considering the contributions of humans, we recognize that humans possess abilities of perception and adaptability that are exceptional among known species. The court has been guided by these insights in reaching a fair decision regarding Ceres 9. The settlement will reflect balance, fairness, and the recognition of all parties involved. Mara's heart lifted. The settlement was fair, yes, but, more importantly, it symbolized something greater. Humans had earned respect in a place where they were once underestimated. Delegates approached her with cautious smiles and respectful gestures, acknowledging her skill and insight. The insect-like delegate that had caused previous interference even offered a subtle nod of apology, which Mara returned graciously. Humans were no longer outsiders, they were recognized, respected, and valued. Eli stepped beside her, smiling. We did it, he said quietly. Humans have earned their place. Mara looked around the hall, at the assembly of diverse species, all of whom now viewed her people differently. We did more than survive, she said softly. We proved humans can see what others cannot. We are clever, adaptable, and capable. As the session ended, Mara and Eli walked toward the exit. Delegates whispered among themselves, some still curious, some clearly impressed. Mara knew this was only the beginning. Humans had shown their value, but the galaxy was vast and many challenges would come. Still, today had proven one thing. Humans were not fragile. They were perceptive, resilient, and intelligent. They could observe, adapt, and influence in ways no other species could imagine. Stepping out into the corridor, Mara took a deep breath. She felt the pride of her species and the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment. Eli glanced at her with a smile. "This is just the start," he said. Mara nodded, looking ahead. The universe had finally seen humans for what they truly were. And from this day forward, no one would underestimate them again.